Good morning. I have been repeatedly asked by clients and students about the changes that we're experiencing on the planet. People are looking for answers. And what I want to share is a slightly different perspective, something that has been in the works for a while and something that Spirit has been giving me in snippets. So with the information that is available to me, I'd like to share the following. About 4 or 5 years ago, I started a series of talks called Presence of Being. And in these talks, Spirit has been mentioning the seismic waves of energy which come from deep space. I believe that these waves are triggered by the shifts in the universal cycles which are taking place just as Earth is experiencing our own 2,000-year cycle or cyclic change. These seismic waves of energy basically move through space, move through our solar system, and Earth at the same time is impacted by these waves of energy. These waves of energy bring expansion of consciousness and surges in consciousness. What's interesting is that recently I linked these waves of energy to the magnetic energy fields in space and around our planet. A scientist put together information around the surges in the magnetic fields and these incredible surges seen coming from space during this time. What's interesting is that I believe now that the seismic waves of energy actually cause these magnetic surges around our planet and in our solar system. So regarding this particular experience that we're having, this COVID-19 pandemic, what Spirit has explained to me is that there was a manipulation by certain governments and certain politicians of the social media around the time and the media around the time that this whole thing started manifesting, which would have been around February. And what's interesting is that as these waves of energy impact the earth, they expand consciousness. And when this manipulation of the media and social media happened, around the same time, a wave of light impacted the planet and literally surged the consciousness, the group consciousness amongst other forms of consciousness on the planet, causing essentially a viral expression of this manipulative information. Now, to my understanding, the individuals that were responsible for the original manipulation were not expecting that surge of energy. And in fact, it has not suited their ends that we have now gone into lockdown globally. They essentially wanted purely to create some sort of crisis and show themselves as coming out of it being the savior of their specific environments and or countries. So one can speculate who those individuals are, but they are almost insignificant in the grand scheme or the bigger picture of what is transpiring here. So to that end, it's important to understand that yes, COVID-19 does exist, but the virus and its threat by comparison would be linked, or you could see it as the size of a tennis ball, and the consciousness around it is the size of the room that you are sitting in. So the fear-based consciousness around the actual virus and its threat is massive compared to the real threat. That's not to say that you shouldn't take precautions if you feel that you should. But it's an indication of how relevant the surge of consciousness is that happens from these seismic waves and these magnetic waves of energy as they move into our solar system. The more important, or more important, certainly from Spirit's perspective, experience that is manifesting here is that the expansion of consciousness or the surge of consciousness also makes it possible for us to evolve. So in that, on a very literal level in the energy field, there is a rising of Kundalini energy. And that rising of Kundalini energy is something that I've witnessed in many clients over the last couple of weeks, month or so, as I have been channeling for them. Also, it manifests itself as the clearing of residual patterning or residue patterning, which is karmic in nature and belongs to the preceding cycle. But it is as though there are tendrils of that remains, and as our Kundalini rises, it just simply purifies or clears away the remaining patterning. At the time of the last talk that I did, which was December of 2019, Spirit gave some timing around the surges of energy and their subsequent months of integration. And it's important for us to just rehash that so that we become aware that there are more waves of energy coming. We have been working with these waves of energy for almost 5 years now. So they're not new, but they're definitely intensifying. And the group consciousness and the consciousness of individuals seems to be becoming more sensitive to them. So they spoke about the actual waves of energy coming in January, May, July, September, and August. So these are the times when the actual flow of or movement of energy from space happens. However, in between months, which would be February, March, April, June, October, November, and December, are months of integration. So that is when we experience it on the planet and it literally flows through us. In December, Spirit mentioned that our sleep patterns are impacted during the times of integration. Unresolved patterning, which is what I've seen happening in the Kundalini, rising of the Kundalini and the clearing of residual karmic energy, transpires. That we need to be very conscious of our boundaries during this time because we are capable of being impacted by other people's surges in consciousness. We need to look after the inner child and we need to keep our mental body well grounded. Well, I can say for myself that my sleep during this time of integration has vacillated between sleeping exceptionally well and being very restless, and there seems to be no in between. Certainly boundaries have come up for me strongly because I have felt the impact of the group consciousness on me and have needed to keep it at bay. My inner child has sought creative expression and stimulation, and when I haven't done that, I've almost found myself becoming emotionally heavy or a little bit depressed. And the mental body has needed grounding in the form of this constant sort of internal dialogue perpetuating itself and reiterating things from the past, whether they are people or circumstances or situations, but all, of course, linked to the clearing of that residual patterning. So that is a brief overview of what I understand based on what is happening currently. And sometimes I think it helps just to extract ourselves from ground level and look at things from higher perspectives. When we do that, we are able to move away from the fear, from people's individualized agendas, the manipulations of social media, of the media, move away from group consciousness and start to look at things from a place of individualized truth and then hopefully a greater truth. I hope that is of help to everybody, and I send out lots of love. Please check up on each other, be kind to each other, and keep your heart chakras open. Thank you.